To a developing story in Coleman County, the Hansville Police Department is now being called a criminal enterprise after the chief of police and 4 officers were hauled off in handcuffs, arrested on drug-related charges and tampering with evidence.
9 findings and recommendations to the city of Hansville, which include a rampant culture of corruption, abolishing the police department, and the death of a Hansville dispatcher was the direct result of the Hansville Police Department's negligence.
So I've done a lot of videos on abolishing the police. But in this case, this town absolutely needs to abolish its police department because it's essentially a criminal organization. Let's talk about it. Okay, this is probably one of the worst police corruption stories I've covered. It's pretty insane stuff. Welcome to Hansville, Alabama, population 3,000 residents. Now, this town has a population that's about 86.6% white. So you may be asking, why are we talking about this small town in the middle of nowhere, Alabama? Well, that's because the police department seems to be a criminal organization running drugs and guns through this particular town. So let me take you back to the beginning. Dispatcher Christopher Willingham was found dead at police headquarters, and he died from what seemed to be a drug overdose.
This investigation started when Chris Willingham was found dead from an overdose while he was on the job at the 911 center in August. We now know that he died with a cocktail of drugs in his system, including fentanyl. As of today, we learned that some of those drugs came right from the Hansville Police Evidence Room, which has now sparked a massive drug and corruption investigation.
Now, obviously, a police dispatcher dying in the police precinct of a drug overdose is going to lead to an investigation. So the Alabama Bureau of Investigations looked into the department's practices to see why this happened. Now, their investigation found what they called rampant culture of corruption within the department. Now, here's an example. See, the police department had its evidence room. Now, the evidence room is obviously locked because that evidence is used in trials. But, and there's a big but here, police officers and staff at the police department cut a hole in the wall, allowing them access to the evidence room, even though it was behind a locked door. Here is what the investigators found.
I want to talk about the evidence room, and we're going to have another slide for you. One of the most concerning things that we discovered in this process was that Hansville Police Department's evidence room was not secure. Criminal evidence must be secured in order to have that evidence for prosecution and to ensure due process. This evidence room was anything but secure. This photo here is the outside wall to the evidence room, and you will see this hole in the evidence room. This picture was taken on August 23rd, 2024. You also notice a broomstick in the corner that is green with a white handle on it. And in the next couple slides, you will see what that broomstick was used for in this hole. And I'm not going to name the individual pictured here. This is someone who works there. And you can see this individual has this stick in his hand and is pushing it in the door, in the hole to open the door. And the grand jury watched a lot of videos. This is from security camera footage showing this evidence room was routinely accessed by individuals who were not authorized to do so, going in and out using this stick through the hole in the wall. And we have one more photo of that. This is from the same transaction here where this individual who had the stick is actually sticking his head and upper body into the hole, attempting to jimmy open the door, which was a quite common occurrence.
Now, why were they going into this evidence room? Well, it seems like they were sharing and distributing the drugs amongst themselves and having a good time, to the point where one of their own actually ODs in the police station from the drugs in the evidence room, which is insane old stuff. So state authorities went to the district attorney's office with their evidence, and the district attorney went to a grand jury, presented their case, and the grand jury came back with some very explosive recommendations.
Just learned Hansville's chief of police and 4 of his officers and one of their wives indicted today in a stunning case of corruption within the department. It's because of the incident we're about to share that a grand jury is recommending the abolishment of the Hansville Police Department. 6 people you see here were all allegedly involved. The Coleman County Sheriff and District Attorney tell us the group took drugs from the department's evidence room and distributed them. The grand jury found a poorly secured evidence room was directly linked to the death of a Hansville dispatcher last August. His death was ruled an accident as a result of the combined toxic effects of multiple drugs, otherwise known as a drug overdose. Most of those involved are facing felony charges. Authorities say the evidence room was accessed by removing a portion of the wall and opening it with a broom from inside. You can see it pictured here. The grand jury determined that because of the unlawful access to the room, all evidence in the room, whether related to this case or not, is now unusable in court. The grand jury showed no mercy. They recommend that any current or former officer of the department indicted should be suspended. They also say the department should be immediately abolished.
Abolish the police department. That's the recommendation from a Coleman County grand jury following alleged criminal activity within the department.
So remember, the police chief's indicted, a couple of his officers, and an officer's wife, all indicted on major felony charges. So what was next? Well, now they had to be arrested and processed. So they were.
There is a rampant culture of corruption in the Hansville Police Department, which has recently operated as more of a criminal enterprise than a law enforcement agency.
The Hansville police chief, 4 of his officers, and an officer's wife are all facing a variety of crimes from felonies to misdemeanors. Eric Kelso is accused of giving Adderall, hydrocodone, and anabolic steroids to 2 fellow officers, Cody Kelso and Jason Wilbanks. Eric and his wife Donna are both charged with drug distribution and conspiracy. Police Chief Jason Marlin is accused of knowing about at least some of these issues and failing to report them.
These officers find themselves on the opposite end of the laws they were sworn to uphold.
So now understand what's going on. The entire police department essentially is a criminal organization. So local authorities are like, we can't trust anybody in that department when it goes all the way to the top like this. So they essentially put everyone who's working at the police department on leave and had the local sheriff's department run policing services within the city. Check it out.
Just in the last couple of minutes, the Coleman County Sheriff's Office officially taking over your safety if you live in the city of Hansville. The entire Hansville Police Department is on leave as of 5 o'clock today following the arrest of several officers and the chief and an officer's wife yesterday.
All 6 of them facing charges ranging from distributing drugs to tampering with evidence.
A formal statement was taped onto the front door of the Hansville City Hall not even an hour ago. And as of 1 minute ago, all employees with the Hansville Police Department have been placed on administrative leave. Now, we just got video of one of those Coleman County deputies driving into Hansville.
So now what does this community do? Do you abolish your police force or do you continue on, just fire all the bad eggs? Now, at the recent council meeting, they were supposed to decide whether they were going to abolish the police department and essentially start from scratch. Here's what happened.
The big story tonight, the future of the Hansville Police Department. Good evening, I'm Carla Lang. It was a packed house for tonight's city council meeting with a line out the door.
Tensions and emotions were high in the Hansville City Council meeting Thursday night.
If all of y'all can't figure that out and get this to a venue where people can be heard, and if you can't figure out how to get a microphone where people can be heard, I'm not sure you should be making decisions about who runs the town.
Residents of Hansville lined the walls of the city's municipal chambers, making sure their voices were heard.
Several cops here that harassed my boys, all 3 of my boys.
That officer hit me from behind, which I can't hardly still walk, with his knee, took me to the ground, and beat me mercifully.
Former Hansville Mayor Katie Whitley was also in attendance when asked if she thinks the department is corrupt.
Yeah, seems like it, don't it?
Adding that she's saddened by the current status of the city she once governed.
I'm ashamed that it's happened. I'm ashamed that we didn't have more leadership down here. And I blame the council and the mayor.
And in a twist, current city clerk Tanya Wilcox sporadically took the stand.
The police chief, Josh Howell, back in April and before,
of 2024 threatened me on 3 occasions. I have had my life threatened over what went on at this police department.
Reflecting on problems that happened in previous years with the department, adding that more information will come to light in the future. But with a lot to consider, Hansville City Council voted to table the decision on the fate of the department, pushing it to a later date.
So now, I gotta kick it to you. You got cops going into the evidence locker, taking drugs out, overdosing on duty with the drugs that they have in the evidence locker. Then on top of that, they're highly corrupt. Sounds like they were selling, right? Trafficking these narcotics too. This is insane on stuff. And I don't think there's any way you can keep this police force around. I think you gotta start fresh. But what do you guys think? Do you guys think that they should just abolish the police and start fresh? They do have the county sheriff that can hold it down for, a short period of time until they figure out what they're going to do. But I think I would just start fresh. There's no way I can trust any of the officers who are still there because obviously it's a small department. People knew what was going on. To what extent, you can make that argument, but with so much going on, there was a hole in the wall of the evidence locker and a broomstick. I'm assuming everyone knew that was going on. Now, I never thought I'd say these words out of my mouth, but I think it's time to abolish this police department. Now, as always, tell me wherever I'm in the comment section, say, hey, Nate, I disagree. We're going to keep this police department and try to make it better. Again, I disagree with you. Abolish it, let's start fresh, and get some people in there that we believe we can trust, because the people who we have in here now, I'm not too sure. I also want to mention any evidence from that evidence room is, just like the grand jury said, unusable. If any cases hinge on that evidence, anything inside that room, unfortunately, you gotta let those people go. That evidence is 100% tainted. There is clearly no chain of custody, clearly wasn't secure. The cops were using some of the drugs. At that point in time, whatever's in that evidence locker, it just is what it is. You got to let those cases go. Those people, it's a sad day that these guys have to get a walk, but then could you even trust the officers who were dealing with those cases because of this issue? Of course not. So this is going to be a big get out of jail free card for a lot of those defendants, but I'm not even sure if they're really legitimately arrested or anything like that, right? Because this police department is just so corrupt. If you're listening to my voice right now, I got one thing to say. If you haven't subscribed, please hit the button. It's free. It helps me grow and helps me get more videos out like this. So with that being said, my name is Nate the Lawyer. I'm out. Peace.